boils down to this, folks. It's one game to rule it all. One win, and you go through to, of course, the Champions League's bloody league phase. Who, of course, will get it. Who, of course, will take a tumble to the Europa League. We're going to get into all of that and much more next. That's right, folks, back once again with another video today. It is the final qualifying game for the Champions League. And, of course, we've got some big clubs on the brink of collapse, some clubs on the brink of qualification. And that is, of course, to the money competition, the Champions League phase. Who am I talking about? Well, I'll tell you in a second. If you know where you've been, smash your subscribe. Your subscribe for Blackburn Rovers, Champions League, woo, football. We're going to all hear under one Ruski. That's right, of course, Celtic. They got work to do. Got a long old trip up ahead, but of course, so do a bloody Rangers. Of course, absolute shambles they were this past week. Can they bounce back? We'll take a little look in just a second. If you know where you've been, smash your subscribe. Your subscribe is right here. Big shout out to the members and the patrons. You know who you are. So what we're going to do now, though, is revisit the first legs, of course, and my predictions, which were pretty terrible, and of course, showcase you what's coming on in the second legs and see who I think will go through. Not many games to talk about, but of course, it's all about the drama. So here we go. Ferencvaros, wow, absolutely spanked by Qarabağ all at home as well. Red Star Belgrade also losing to Paphos from Cyprus. I say that again, Paphos from Cyprus. Meanwhile, Rangers at home, goodness gracious me. Club Brugge picking up a monster 3-1 win as well. But there's no surprise here though, Bodø Glimt look good. 5-0 winners of Sturm. Graz, they've got 1 foot in that Champions League phase. Celtic could only muster a draw against Kairat, and we'll have to do that big old journey as well. Basel against Copenhagen, all square on that one. Fenerbahce and Benfica did end up all square 0-0. I went with a 1-1, of course. So that's the situation I find ourselves in after the first legs, and not the greatest picks by myself. But we go again, guys. We go again for the second legs, and we're going to start with a trip to Qarabağ. That's right, on the 27th of August at the Tokwak Barakwanmav Republican Stadium. Qarabağ managed by Gurbanov. Just one defeat in the last 6. They're on 83% form up against Ferencvaros under Robbie Keane on back-to-back defeats right now. They have played 4 times since 2022. 2 wins for Qarabağ, nothing for Ferencvaros. There has been 2 draws between the two sides. Qarabağ, though, have a 3-1 win on the record. They have scored 10 goals compared to Fenerbahçe 6 over the course of those 4 matches, picking up a 2.50 goals a game ratio up against Fenerbahçe 1.50 goals a game ratio. The last time they played over at Qarabağ, it was a 3-3 thriller. It was a friendly, doesn't really count. The last time they played competitively at this very venue was a 1-1 scoreline way back in August 2022. If it was a 1-1 scoreline, guess what? Qarabağ will go through. We have basic odds on this one. The basic odds show that a victory for Qarabağ is likely in this game, and I've gone with a 3-0 win. Unfortunately, Ferencvaros have reached their sort of limit, and I do believe they'll have to settle for a spot in the Europa League. Let's go to Paphos then, as they take on Red Star Belgrade, goodness gracious me, at the Amapá Stadium. That's right, Paphos managed by Juan Carlos Caicedo. They've won 4 in the bouts right here, right now. They're unbeaten in the last 8 up against Red Star Belgrade under Vladan Mijovic. Just 1 defeat in the last 6. Of course, the previous match was a 2-1 win for Paphos in Belgrade there. So a monster result for Paphos on this one. They're coming into this on the back of back-to-back wins, beating Dynamo Kiev, of course, previously. They've actually won 4 in the spin, looking very, very good. Up against Red Star Belgrade, who, of course, on the back of that loss there. They did they did have a big win in the domestic league with a Mlados Lukani 4-1 win there. So fully focused for this game. We do have odds. The odds go in favour of Red Star Belgrade in Cyprus. I just think that mental hurdle will be a little bit of a struggle here. I'm going 2-0 win for Paphos, and that could send them through and send Red Star Belgrade to the Europa League. We'll find out in due course. Let's go to the next one. It's Club Brugge. They're taking on Rangers, that's right, coming in Belgium, that's right. Nicky Hayden's boys there, 5 wins on the spin for them. Rangers up against it with Russell Martin at the helms at the Jan Breal Stadium. They played twice in 2025, 1 win for Club Brugge, nothing for Rangers. There's been 1 draw between these two sides. The draw last time around, it was in Rangers, it was a friendly, doesn't really count. Of course, the last result at Ibrox, 3-1 winners it was for Club Brugge. Rangers, though, are in action tonight, this weekend, taking on St Mirren. They're expected to win that game. Club Brugge, I'm sure they're in action in the old Europa League there, but I don't have the numbers or the names in front of me. I'm going to go. I think Rangers are going to have to settle for Europa League here. I think that margin is too big. I think Rangers can get something out of this, but ultimately I think they'll lose 3-1 as well in this leg, which of course, if you do the maths, That's them taking a tumble. Meanwhile, we go to, where do we go now? We go to Sturm Graz. They've got Mission Impossible as they take on Bodø Glimt over in the Worthsea Stadium. Jürgen Samuel's boys are just one win in the last 4 for them. Up against Bodø Glimt and Nigel Knutsen, 92% form for them right now. And of course, coming into on the back of that 5-0 win, of course, in Norway. Don't see what's happening behind the scenes domestically between these two sides, but I think this game is already over. I think Bodø Glimt will provide something, but I think Sturm Graz might be a little bit more stubborn this time around. They'll try and make a game of it, but ultimately, I think Bodø Glimt will have too much class. And for the joy of the Champions League, I'm happy to see Bodø Glimt in there, and they will be a threat, especially at home. So I do anticipate, I've got a 2-2 scoreline here, which of course you do the maths. You get the calculators out and you figure that sucker out. Meanwhile, we go to Kairat. Long old travel for Celtic. Of course, Kairat had to make the trip themselves the other way this past match week. But these two sides locking horns over in Kairat on the 26th of August is the early kickoff at the Central Stadium. Kairat managed by Rafael Uzbatanin. They're winless of the last 3 matches. We get Celtic and Brendan Rodgers. They've unbeaten in the last 5. Of course, the first leg of the affair was the 0-0 scoreline over at Celtic Park. Celtic are in action, I'm sure, this weekend. They must be playing now or very, very soon until now. The bookies odds for this one, they'll go with Celtic on this one. I think I've gone with Celtic as well somehow. I've gone with a 1-1 scoreline, which means we have to go to penalties. Of course, we'll get that to you in good time here. And moving forward, we go to the final couple. It's Copenhagen. They're taking on Basel, coming at you over at the Parkenstadion. Copenhagen managed by Jakob Nyström, just 1 defeat in the last 6 for them. Up against Basel under Ludwig Magnin, just 1 defeat in the last 5. Both sides are decent kind of form, and of course that's explained by that 1-1 scoreline in Switzerland. The past leg back on the 20th of August. Coming into this, Basel taking on Odense this weekend. They're expected to win that game. Basel probably in action as well. The bookies, though, have this one going in favour of Copenhagen, as do I. 2-0 winners for the Danish outfit, and that'll secure their spot, I think, into the passage of the league phase. And then finally, we go to Benfica up against Fenerbahce. What a game this is. Of course, it is Mourinho in the dugout for Fenerbahce up against Bruno Lager, the protege and the Jedi Master, the Estadio do Sport Las Paspanis Benfica. Of course, they played 6 times in 2013, 3 wins for Benfica, 1 win for Fenerbahce. There's been 2 draws between the two sides. Benfica coming into this on 92% form. They're unbeaten in at least the last 6. Up against Fenerbahce, unbeaten in the last 3. However, look at it a different way. Just 1 win in the last 4 matches. They last played over at Benfica. It was a 0-0 scoreline. Scrap that. It was a last time they played competitively, it was a 1-0 scoreline for Benfica back in August 2018. It was in the Champions League qualification round. Coming into this, Benfica taking on Tondela this week over in the Portuguese top flight. Fenerbahce taking on Kocaeli in the Superliga over in Turkey. Both sides at home, both sides expected to win. But the bookies odds for this match, of course, over in Portugal, they go in favour of Benfica. And I've gone tight on this one. I've gone with a 3-1 win, Benfica, which of course will mean Mourinho has to settle for a space in the Europa League, I believe. So let's do the mathematics and get the old aggregate scorelines to you. Of course, Qarabag should have enough in the tank. 6-1 win on aggregate. They'll be joined by Paphos, surprise, surprise. Club Brugge will be there, as will Bodø Glimt. Kairat will be knocked out. Celtic squeak through on penalties. Copenhagen are there, as are Benfica. That, my friends, is what I've got for you in, of course, the Champions League final round there. Of course, we'll be back with, of course, our early door predictions for the Champions League and, of course, regular match day by match day predictions. So make sure you come back for that. But until then, I'll see you soon whenever I return. But until then, we're done.